Welcome, seekers of truth, to the profound and final chapter of our ancient, epic journey. Society tells us that wanting more is the ultimate engine of human progress and glory. We fiercely crave larger castles, greater wealth, and lives far better than those living right beside us. Yet the Almighty closed His divine laws with an absolute ban on this very human desire. Why is simply coveting your neighbor's blessings considered the darkest black hole of all sins? Behold a kingdom bathed in golden sunlight, where monumental architecture touches the sky. Merchants from distant lands arrive with heavy chests, offering sparkling jewels and pure gold coins. Ambition drives this massive empire forward, turning barren deserts into thriving, wealthy cities. The powerful king sits upon his massive throne, wrapped in crimson silk and heavy royal jewels. He commands mighty armies and possesses endless treasures that mortal men can only dream of. Yet, beneath his solid gold crown, a deep and restless shadow violently consumes his soul. Standing on his high balcony, he looks down into a tiny, peaceful valley far below him. Down there lives a humble neighbor, a simple peasant working quietly in his small, dusty garden. The poor man wears rough linen canvas, his face covered in sweat beneath the warm, golden sunlight. He tends to his green olive trees with pure joy, completely satisfied with his very simple life. Watching this serene happiness, the great monarch feels a sudden, burning pain of intense jealousy. Despite his endless riches, the sovereign tightly grips the cold stone railing in silent anger. He stares at that tiny patch of dirt, completely obsessed, forgetting all his magnificent wealth. This marks the beginning of a silent tragedy, an ancient poison spreading inside his mind. Society always whispers that wanting more will inevitably bring us ultimate freedom.
Ensure the shipment arrives by sundown.
They call it a noble pursuit, believing that wealth can permanently fill the hollow human heart. We are taught to look at our neighbors and fiercely desire whatever valuable things they possess. The royal court celebrates expansion, blindly feeding the beast of endless consumption every day. Yet the divine laws offer a frightening contradiction to our normal worldly philosophy. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, nor his wife, nor his servants, nor anything that is his. Why does the moral code focus on an invisible thought instead of a physical action? The king possesses 1,000 servants, yet he bitterly envies the man with a single small field. He watches the peasant rest peacefully under an old tree, enjoying simple, quiet moments. A dark storm of anger brews silently inside the high, golden walls of the magnificent palace. We must now explore the terrifying psychological truth hidden in this ancient command. If you owned the entire world, would you still feel the painful, endless hunger for just a little more? Think deeply about this question as we descend into the agonizing madness of the king. Let us witness how a simple thought of envy can completely destroy a man's spiritual peace. The illusion of progress reveals its true, terrifying face when the sun sets over the realm. Night falls, and the magnificent palace transforms into a terrifying prison of torment. The 10th Commandment is entirely unique because it does not judge a physical action. It pierces directly into the invisible realm of the human mind and deep desires. Inside his massive bedchamber, The miserable king tosses and turns on his expensive sheets. He has not stolen anything yet, but the toxic venom of greed infects his weary, dark soul. Cold sweat drips down his exhausted face as he stands frozen by the large, dark, open window frame. Coveting is a silent cancer, an invisible black hole that consumes all tranquility. The king stares at the valley, imagining the peasant sleeping on a simple wooden bed. He hears the imaginary laughter of the neighbor's wife echoing through the silent gloom. The darkness whispers dangerous lies, convincing the mighty ruler that life is truly unjust. Why should that filthy peasant possess profound joy while I suffer in this golden royal cage? This poisonous thought creates entitlement, twisting his perception of absolute reality. He begins to believe that he genuinely deserves the modest garden more than the peasant. The neighbor sleeps deeply, unaware of the menacing, hateful gaze piercing right through the dark night. The poor man's facial muscles are entirely relaxed, breathing calmly in his humble stone dwelling. Soft moonlight gently washes over his worn clothing, highlighting a soul untouched by heavy greed. The contrast is horrifying. The monarch is a prisoner to his ravenous desires. He paces the marble floor like a trapped animal, his dark robes flowing like heavy, spilled black ink. Historical records often document great wars fought because one ruler coveted some land. The 10th Commandment serves as an absolute firewall, designed to kill the spark before the wildfire. It brutally exposes the truth. Our suffering often stems from wanting what we do not possess. The mind becomes a chaotic battlefield, where demons of envy constantly torment the soul. The king's eyes are wide open, completely swallowed by the insomnia of unfulfilled lust. He violently rips a heavy velvet curtain, trying to block the peaceful silver moonlight. Even the luxurious silk cannot warm a spirit freezing in the shadow of pure greed. We see his majestic palace, now resembling a dark tomb filled with meaningless, empty riches. The peasant's humble home, however, radiates a warm, divine glow of absolute contentment. Ancient texts warn that desiring another's property is the beginning of moral destruction. It erodes gratitude, replacing genuine thankfulness with an agonizing sense of lack. The king covers his ears, but he cannot silence the deafening roar of his obsessive desires. He realizes with terrifying clarity that he will never be satisfied with his realm. This internal cancer is about to erupt, pushing him toward the abyss of dreadful crimes. We now arrive at the terrifying climax, where the thought violently gives birth to dark action. The trembling hand of the king slowly reaches forward into the suffocating deep and cold darkness. His fingers curl like cruel claws, desperately trying to grasp an illusion he cannot possess. Coveting is the cursed root system from which the other devastating sins naturally grow. Because a man secretly covets a wife, the sacred vow of marriage is violently broken. In his tortured mind, the king envisions tearing apart the neighbor's perfectly peaceful household. The wife recoils in absolute terror, retreating into the harsh red shadows of his fantasy. Because a man deeply hungers for wealth, his greedy hands commit the heavy crime of brutal theft. We see innocent victims dressed in rags, weeping as their possessions are ruthlessly taken. Because a ruler fiercely desires a vineyard, he bears false witness in the high, royal, mighty court. The king's face contorts with supreme madness as he commands guards to silence the poor innocent. Because this toxic envy cannot be contained, tragic ruin becomes the inevitable, dark end. Ominous lighting flashes across his sweating face, revealing a monstrous, corrupted human soul. He destroys every moral foundation to quench a thirst that can absolutely never be quenched. Has your own desire for success ever caused you to secretly compromise your deep moral values? This brutal mental struggle breaks the mighty king, leaving him completely and utterly destroyed. Greed promises absolute satisfaction, but only delivers endless starvation to the heart. The once glorious king now looks like a feral beast, trapped within a mighty nightmare of his making. The historical evidence proves that empires collapse from the sheer weight of internal, greedy lust. An invisible cancer of the soul is more dangerous than any army with sharp bronze swords. The abstract background swirls with violent colors, perfectly matching his escalating breakdown. He gasps for air, choking on his toxic ambition, disconnected from normal human reason. His hands, meant to protect the realm, are now curled tightly into the claws of a desperate predator. This is why the 10th Commandment exists, to sever the toxic root before the tree bears poison. You cannot steal, devastate, or betray if your mind is guarded against the fatal disease of envy. The peasant's wife fades into the deep shadows, representing peace threatened by greedy royal power. The frail victims weep silently, their dirty faces a harsh condemnation of the king's boundless greed. He is surrounded by ghosts of his own making, haunted by sins he has not even committed. The psychological tension reaches its peak as the king collapses to his royal marble floor. He has completely lost the battle against his inner demons, becoming a broken, empty shell. The 10th Commandment stands vindicated, proving unchecked thought is the ultimate destructive weapon. Morning finally breaks, bringing a harsh light to the absolute ruin of the weary monarch. He sits at a massive feast table filled with food, yet he slumps forward in total and dark defeat. His golden crown rests crookedly on his head. He is a starving beggar among infinite gold. The antidote to this deadly poison is not a forceful suppression of our deep worldly desires. True liberation from the black hole of endless greed requires the powerful practice of gratitude. Far below the royal balcony, the humble neighbor kneels on the dry, dusty morning soil. He gently lifts a simple clay bowl filled with fresh water toward the bright, golden morning sky. A genuine smile of ultimate contentment radiates from his deeply sun-tanned, weathered face. He owns nothing of great material value, yet he is the wealthiest man in the kingdom. When you learn to be completely satisfied with divine blessings, your soul becomes invincible. The ravenous beast of envy simply starves to death when confronted with genuine thankfulness. This is the brilliant synthesis of the divine law given to mankind on the ancient mountain. The 10 Commandments have established the absolute boundaries of righteous human behavior. By closing the gate of the mind, the Creator perfectly protects us from destroying ourselves. The miserable king remains trapped in his cold palace, entirely defeated by his own desires. His massive feast rots away untouched, symbolizing the tragic emptiness of material wealth. But the peasant closes his eyes in quiet prayer, finding true heaven on this dusty, broken earth. We have completed the journey through the moral laws, finding the absolute truth of the Spirit. Yet a terrifying question remains unanswered in the vast history of human existence. What happens when you follow every single command perfectly, but disaster still strikes you? Look closely at the peaceful neighbor in his humble garden, basking in the divine morning light. He has never stolen, never vanquished others, and never coveted the king's massive gold wealth. Suddenly, the clear morning sky turns completely black as heavy storm clouds violently gather. A fierce and unnatural wind begins to rip through the peaceful olive trees of the small valley. The righteous peasant stands in shocked awe, his rough clothes flapping wildly in the terrifying gale. A massive shadow descends, threatening to obliterate his perfectly innocent and pure life. If God is truly just, why are the most faithful subjects brutally crushed by sudden tragedy? Why do wicked men prosper in palaces, while good men suffer under devastating cosmic storms? Next season will confront the most difficult philosophical trial in human history. Prepare yourselves for the dark, relentless whirlwind of the incredibly profound Book of Job. If avoiding greed brings inner peace, why do righteous people still suffer unimaginable pain? Is suffering a test of faith or a cosmic injustice? Share your profound thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share it to help others find true enlightenment.